A very warm welcome to everyone. Welcome to the Undergraduate Webinar Series, an interactive platform connecting high school students with the Ashoka community. Thank you for joining our session today on Ashoka's holistic undergraduate admissions, specifically the Ashoka application process and scholarships. My name is Madhuri Lalwani from the Office of Admissions. Joining me today is Mercia Prince, the Director of the Office of Admissions at Ashoka University. Together, we will not just take you through the process, but we will be addressing some of your queries about the undergraduate admissions process. A very warm welcome to you, Mercia. Before we get started, I would like to inform our audience that the deadline for the round one of Ashoka's undergraduate program is 26 November 2025. You do not have to wait for your Class 12 board marks or your CUET scores to apply. So you can get a confirmed offer of admission and scholarship even before your final board results are announced. So without further ado, let's get started. Remember that you can also post any of your questions in the Q&A box, and we will be taking them once we go over the process. So over to you, Mercia.
Thank you, Madhuri. Evening to all of you. I know you must be joining from various places. So as we start the conversation, I want to welcome you to Ashoka. I'm sure all of you have had some interactions, if not many, with some of our team members, and you probably already have a good idea of what's to come. You've also probably had the chance to look at the application form and are considering Ashoka. So let me just get right into it. And as I begin, I'll share my screen. So just as a quick overview, what we intend to do actually today is talk about the an overview of the academic programs, the undergraduate academic programs at Ashoka that Ashoka offers, and then a look at life on campus and the residential life that Ashoka offers. And then, of course, an overview of the application and admissions process. And then we'll take some questions. So let me launch right into it. One of the things that is of key importance at Ashoka and is the fact that we are looking at a holistic education, right? Holistic liberal education is what we're focusing on. And I want to just talk a little bit about what that really means for potential Ashoka students, right? And you might have an idea already, but let me just give you a bit of an overview of what we offer as a university within this holistic liberal education program that, that we run and we have been for the last many years. So essentially, it's a 4-year program. It's a BA or BSc honors with research or without research, depending on what you choose to pursue. And the choice is entirely yours. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The program in itself is quite multidisciplinary. But it's not just multidisciplinary, it is interdisciplinary, right? So the focus of learning is both multi and interdisciplinary, and you might be wondering what that means, or you may know what that means already, but essentially it is the fact that you will be exposed to a range of disciplines, and then you will get a fair amount of depth and exposure into multiple disciplines, following which you will have the opportunity to then get into depth of the major that you want to, right? But what this allows for is it allows you to use the learnings that you have in different disciplines and allow them to interact with each other, teach you to interact, use these disciplines to interact with each other. And so your learning is not going to be very straitjacketed or very singular. And so if that sort of excites you, then Ashoka is definitely a place for you. An interesting part is that you get to sort of design your own Ashoka journey. And by that, I mean, yes, of course, some of your classes will be similar to others. Some of the things that you do will be similar to others. But I think I can safely say that no two Ashoka students have the exact same journey, right? I mean, I think no two human beings have the same journey, but particularly the academic journey, the residential life journey at Ashoka can be anything that you want it to be, depending on what your focus is, depending on what you want to develop and what you want to explore, right? And as you probably know, it is a fully residential program. And so you are required to live on campus. You're required to be part of life post, classroom activities and engagements, right? So we'll walk you through all of this, but what are we really trying to say through these? All of these aspects within your 4 years at Ashoka, whether you focus on doing research in your 4th year or not, or whether you want to just explore the major and learn as much as you want through different disciplines as well. The primary focus of Ashoka is really critical thinking, right? It teaches you how to think, and the way this is done is through academic reading, academic research, and academic writing. Some of these things, unfortunately, are not things that we are taught in many of our school curriculums, particularly in our country. But the focus of Ashoka really is that you are taught to look at all sorts of texts, and not just texts as in books, right? Like you can look at movies, you can look at music, you can look at articles, journals, whatever. You can pick up those pieces of literature or content and be able to look at it with a critical lens, right? Be able to look at it from multiple perspectives, not just a very singular perspective. And that is really the core and the heart and the beauty of an Ashoka education. So if that excites you, again, I think this would be a fantastic start to a journey of learning, allowing you to, critique. And critique is not a bad word, right? You can positively critique, you can negatively critique as well. And maybe we have more experience of that. But you're able to look at various lenses and look through various lenses, but look at the same thing from multiple perspectives. And that's just you. Imagine all the other people who are with you, right? They're all going to be looking at that through their own lenses. And of course, we all have our biases. We all have our own backgrounds which have defined the way we view things, right? So a very interesting part of Ashoka's learning is that you will learn that you need to unlearn a lot of stuff. You will start very quickly unlearning things that you thought were, right, maybe, You will start learning that there may not necessarily be very clear right and wrong answers to everything. And you might say that eventually you would enjoy being, in a place that is before the question mark and not after the question mark, looking only for very clear answers. So these are all, things that you will explore. And I think this happens from day one at Ashoka. Some of the other important aspects is collaboration, teamwork, peer learning. We believe that you don't learn in isolation. You don't learn any discipline in isolation, right? So you learn different disciplines, but you also don't learn anything in isolation as a human being. You're always learning as you're engaging with others, and you learn a lot more as you engage more. So the more you engage, the more you learn, right? The more you collaborate, the more you work on projects, the more you have conversations and discussions, the more disagreements you have. You learn. Like every disagreement is an opportunity to learn some more, right? And because the cohort is diverse and because the cohort is not homogeneous, as it sometimes tends to be within the school setup, and because people and students come from various backgrounds, various walks of life, countries, cities, languages, culture, and everything else, there is a lot of scope for peer learning. And the more you interact with people who are not like yourself, the more you learn, because then it gives you more windows and more doors to look through and more lenses to look through. The aim of the curriculum at Ashoka is also to gear you, to set you up, to equip you to problem solve, to innovate, to focus on social impact. These are things that are very important to us at Ashoka. We want you to not just only learn theoretically, but to use the theory that you learn to look at the world and the world is changing, the world is evolving, but to look at it in a way where you can identify some real problems that, the world has, and try and find ways to address that. So problem solving, innovation, social impact are things that are very important in the Ashoka journey. And eventually, like, because you live there, right? Imagine 4 years living with all kinds of people, you will get the opportunity to build your soft skills, build, apart from what you learn academically, right? Build a range of skills, right? Develop your interests and participate in active community life. And when we talk to you more about what happens in the residential program, you'll see that the opportunities are many. And if you take hold of them, you'll definitely be able to develop various parts of yourself, things that you were interested in, things that you thought that you never thought you may get the opportunity to do, to explore. You'll get to do that. Or also maybe things that you didn't even think about, you didn't know existed. And then you come to a place like Ashoka and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Maybe this is something I'd like to explore. And you might become fantastic at it. So in a nutshell, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but I've tried to put it all in one slide to kind of tell you that in a nutshell, life at Ashoka over a period of 4 years has rigorous academic learning, has, learning from all spaces, people, all kinds of learning. And then, of course, the output of that is that you would be able to think, you'd be able to collaborate, you'd be able to problem solve, and you'd be able to live in a community and thrive, right? And I think essentially that's what we want. We want that you should succeed and you should thrive at a place like Ashoka. So this holistic liberal education offers this, and the way it offers, and I'll run through a few slides. These are not slides that may be new for you. These are slides that you might have, and it's all on the website as well. But let me just run through what the program looks like. So in the 4 years, like I said, it's a BA honors or a BSc honors, depending on what you major in. There are some courses, though, that are mandatory for everybody to do, right? And of course, and certain kinds of courses that are mandatory for you to do, regardless of what major you choose. So foundation courses, for example, are courses that you start with in your first semester. They lay the foundation, the base of learning, of unlearning, of trying to understand this new pedagogy, trying to understand this new methodology of learning, what that means. I know some of you sometimes think that, I come from a particular board, educational board. Maybe it's going to be more difficult for me than somebody who comes from a different board. Let me just say that regardless of which board you come from, in your first semester, it is going to be a lot of learning for everybody, right? And we all have areas that we are going to learn. Maybe, and then the struggle will be there, right? You're settling into a new place, you're learning completely new things, you're looking at texts and books that you've never looked at, you're having conversations you haven't engaged in, your professors are treating you like adults, right? They're reading some material and coming, you're reading the same material, they're expecting to have a conversation with you. They're not going to stand there and, lecture you and expect you to memorize anything and take exams based on that. They're expecting you to contribute. So it is going to be new for everybody, regardless of what board you come from, even if you've had some exposure to, reading or writing or research, right? So I think we can safely say that semester 1 is something that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a fantastic time of learning and unlearning. And I would just say that if you're excited about Ashoka, you should be excited about unlearning. It is, unlearning is very closely tied into having an open mind, right? And students with an open mind really thrive at Ashoka because they're open to learning. And with that comes the fact that it is going to be uncomfortable, right? It is going to, because for all your life, you have believed certain things, thought about certain things in a certain way. And in your first semester, you're going to be asked to rethink some of those and deconstruct some of those ideas. So it's going to be exciting, is all I can say. Of course, you will have courses towards your major, whatever major you pick. you'll have a set of courses that you will have to do. So those will be very core and those will be mandatory. You also have a couple of co-curricular courses that you'll have to do, 2 co-curricular courses. Now there's an internship component that has been added, which is mandatory. You can do an internship that gives you 2 credits or a maximum of 4 credits, which is accepted within your graduation requirements. And so Ashoka has always had internships, but now you're going to get credits for it, right? So that's going to be mandatory. Of course, what is not mandatory is doing a minor or doing a concentration or doing elective courses. Minors are in any discipline, you can do a minor, and I'll just show you some list of minors that are there. Minors are 6 courses, concentration are 4 courses in particular disciplines. Of course, electives are just single offerings, right? So you could just say that apart from my major and my co-curricular and my internship and my foundation courses, I just want to do a bunch of electives. You could do that. Or you could say that, I want to do a major and then I want to do a minor in something, or maybe a minor, or maybe a major and a concentration. Of course, your major is mandatory, right? So, the options are so many. And like I said before that, no two, people are having the exact same journey, right? So this is where it all happens. This fact that you get to choose all of this, you get to decide what you want to focus on. The research component is something that's offered in the 4th year. It is equivalent to 3 courses. You do a research in the major that you are pursuing, and you work with a professor, and of course on a topic that excites you, and then you publish a thesis, or you write a thesis, which you can, also use in the future if you're excited about doing your master's. So these are some aspects. Of course, I don't want to get into details because you will obviously, know all of this and know a lot more than I do at some point. But what I want to do actually is take a couple of minutes and run you through just the list and highlight a couple of things for you. So this has been quite standard, the 9 foundation courses. So as you can see, Introduction to Critical Thinking right at the top, a big part of the Ashoka learning and education. But, some of you may not have mathematics in classes 11th and 12th, and you may be like, oh no, I don't know if I can do mathematics. I'm so glad I don't have to do mathematics at university. But, I think you can, I know you won't be comforted by this, but maybe you'll find some comfort in knowing that you will do a mathematical course. It's called Quantitative Reasoning and Mathematical Thinking, but it won't be the scary way that you expect it to be. It will require you to apply your mind, to think, and maybe you'll find it enjoyable. Or some of you may say, I just really not sure if I can read a lot or read text, very heavy, thick books, and there's really not my thing. I'm more a numbers kind of person, maybe, it's okay. You will still do great books, and you will do literature in the world, and you will do a range of other things. Or maybe you'd be like, I'm not really into understanding people so much, or understanding science. Of course, then there's principles of science that you'll have to do, and then there's mind and behavior. So as you can see, we've tried to cover the base so that it doesn't matter where you come from, and it doesn't matter what you're comfortable with or not, but this is really what's going to give you that strong base, because you're going to push yourself out of your comfort zone, starting from your first semester, by doing things, it's pursuing academics and pursuing learning in areas that you might not be completely comfortable as well. Okay, so that's your foundation courses. Quickly move on to your majors. So as you can see, there are 2 lists here. There's the pure majors, and then there's the interdisciplinary major list, right? Pure majors are single major offerings from a single department. Interdisciplinary majors are predefined, pre-designed courses which multiple departments come together and offer a major, right? And let me just highlight that last year we added, I believe it was last year, we added international relations. And just recently we've added management. So all students who, so that's a new one that we've added. But regardless of what major you take, you will have to declare your major at the end of your 3rd semester. So even though you may pick something on the application form now, it's going to be, you can rethink that. There are some mathematics requirements, and you can look that up on the website, but This is these are the list of the majors that Ashoka offers right now. The interdisciplinary major that we last added was economics and public policy. And I think we have a few more in the pipeline. They may come at some point, but these are what we have for now. So you can take a quick look. Okay. Some of the other things that I want to quickly show you are the list of minors and the co-curriculars. So as you can see, the list of minors, the one that we've recently added is digital health. The one we added before that was the one on astronomy. So that list is also growing, right? The list of minors. So but apart from these, maybe you're doing a major in physics. You could do a minor in literature if you want. Maybe you're doing a major in economics, but you could do a minor in biology if you want, right? So all pure majors can also be a minor. So you have that option as well, right? What we're saying essentially is that, you could have a lot of interests, and you do have the opportunity to pursue them. And we've tried to ensure that you have the opportunity to pursue them. The list of co-curriculars is also here. New things are added. These are sort of the departments under which you can learn and explore. A co-curricular course, and you'll have to do 2 of them, is basically something that what might look like an extracurricular, but it's not. It's taught in an academic manner. And so it will be an actual course, right? It won't be an extracurricular activity. So, and that's mandatory as well. We want you to learn and explore more than just what you would consider academic disciplines. Okay, moving on. So the reason we have this slide is because I want to introduce you to a number of centers that Ashoka has, right? I think we're over 20 centers at this point, and it's only going to be growing. So you can look at this list, but what I want to say is that learning doesn't happen only in your major, only in your classroom, only in your courses. Learning at Ashoka is also happening across different spaces. So all of these centers, right, whether it's economic data and analysis, whether it's digital health, whether it's sustainability, climate change, whether it's creative and, Center for the Creative and the Critical, or gender and sexuality, I mean, you can go through the list, right? It's a range of different centers that we have, teams that are working in these centers, faculty are working in these centers, and what they really offer are spaces and areas for you to do research projects, internships, participate in workshops, maybe get mentored, and also maybe be an RA. So you have a lot of options to add to your classroom learning, add to your coursework, by also engaging in these centers and with these centers. And you can do this from the beginning. You don't have to be a 3rd-year student or a 4th-year student to be doing this, right? You can engage with many of these centers. You can get to know people who are the different projects that they are running. And if there's things that interest you, you can participate along with them. So learning is also outside of, the classroom in a number of ways. And centers are a fantastic way for Ashoka students to really learn. Okay. Another way of learning and is through the opportunity to study abroad, right? Either for a semester or summer, you could do even more than one semester and more than one summers in the 4-year program. But you study abroad, you have options across the world. Ashoka has got multiple MOUs signed with different universities in different continents, in different countries, and you can apply for them, right? So you can spend one semester. You have the option also to spend a couple of semesters. You can do summers abroad, and a lot of students use this opportunity because, while you're at Ashoka, you're learning at Ashoka, you also get the opportunity to learn from other universities, right? Because it's kind of hard to enroll in multiple universities at the same time, but this way you can get that opportunity. You can go for 6 weeks in the summer, do a couple of crash courses equivalent to full credits that can be transferred. And the coolest part about this is that your credits can be transferred into what you're doing at Ashoka. So we have an office that helps you with that. They help you decide if this is where you can apply. Of course, there are some criteria from the universities that you're applying to, some Ashoka criteria as well. But if everything works out and you go, if you spent a semester abroad, all the credits that you do there can be transferred to Ashoka, and you still get to graduate on time, along with your cohort. So apart from that, there's also unique like programs that you can do, research internships, and I'll let you read these details. But again, what I'm trying to say is, apart from your classroom learning at Ashoka, apart from what we might think is what happens in a university, there are multiple ways to learn. The focus really is on learning. The focus is on getting exposure. The focus is on allowing different ways, or exploring different ways to allow that to open your mind and to engage. And just as a quick look, we have 50 plus international partnerships. Of course, this list is not comprehensive, but just as a view of some of the ones that we have with, and that students regularly go to. You can also go to university we don't have a partnership with. On the website, you have the whole list of the 50 plus international partnerships that we have. But you could go to universities that are not part of this, and we'll see if there's some way that those credits can be transferred. So there are a lot of conversations that happen. There's a lot of support that you receive, and you can use this as a way of learning as well. So let me stop sharing my screen, because what I have requested Madhuri to do is walk you through a little bit about life on campus. I've tried to cover the academic bit of what our program looks like, the learning opportunities that you have. I'm asking Madhuri to talk a little bit about the residential life program that we have, the campus life experience that you will have should you come to Ashoka. And the reason this is going to be exciting is because a few years ago, before Madhuri was part of the Ashoka admissions office, she was a master's student at Ashoka, and she was living on campus and has experienced, a lot of campus life. And according to her, from what I recall, she has said that she has seen every part of campus. So I'm just going to stop speaking for a few minutes, and Madhuri is just going to walk you through campus life, and then I'll come back and then we'll talk about the admissions process. Okay, Madhuri,
Thank you. Thank you, Mercia. I'm very happy to take everyone over a little bit on the campus life now that you've listened to how the academic program works. I would also like to say, just as the moderator of the session as well, that I see a lot of questions, but do know that we will be going over those questions after we're done taking you through the process. So just to begin with, on campus life, we have about 60 plus clubs and societies, right? And so one of the most important things that you need to know is that apart from a lot of participation within the classroom, our clubs and societies are entirely student run and managed. So what that means is when newer batches are coming in, they're often interviewed by, senior students who are running these clubs and societies. And so that gives students a chance not just to take initiative, but it's like a lot of students, by the time they reach university, they start losing out on their hobbies, and they start, they don't pay as much attention to all sorts of extracurricular activities. And that's something that we don't want you to lose when you come to Ashoka. That's something we pay a lot of attention to in the application process. You will hear soon about how we do that. But at the same time, as you can see the range of clubs and societies, right? So we have the music society, the dance club, Vistar, Abhinaya. We also have some activities that maybe, if you are someone who likes activities a lot more personally, you can engage in, let's say, the Mad Batter Club. You can engage in Farm Fresh, where you get to, try how it feels like to grow crops. You can go through that entire process. And then there's theater, there's travel society. So these are ways in which you can combine your experiences, combine your own individual interests, but have an active community and a whole diverse student body who's very equally enthusiastic in that. And you also have a notable club in society, perhaps, is also the NEEV, right? So NEEV is a community engagement club. And this is when students, have a chance of going around Savarpur and actually engaging with school students, having a chance to teach them over the weekends. So clubs and societies are one, not just a way of how to diversify your portfolio or diversify yourself as a person, but it's really a chance to figure out who you are and to not lose all those interests just because you're at university. So Ashoka is in fact a very encouraging space for students who want to actively encourage, like make room for all their interests. Up next, we have sports and fitness. So sports and fitness obviously forms a huge part of, an individual's sort of engagement in a space. And at Ashoka, we have very stellar infrastructure. As you can see, we have the synthetic running track, we have squash courts, we have a 10-meter shooting range, we have basketball courts, badminton courts, we have a swimming pool, we also have a gym. So with yoga, aerobics, and even Zumba. So there's also a dance room. And then we have a football field and mini field. So while I've gone over the list, I would like you to know that often people perceive that, if you want to participate in sports, it has to be at the level of, if you were participating in the university teams, but that's not true at all. So at Ashoka, we have coaching hours for a lot of these services. They are at no additional cost. So what you could do is you could just check whenever coaching hours are available and actually try out a new activity, right? So even if it is trying to do something socially, even if it is to learn an entirely new sport, or to just, let's say, make sure you're walking, running more as a hobby. There are cycles on campus. So we also often see students take their cycles around campus. That's also quite, satisfying. So all of these services, one of the greatest things is that they're not on any additional cost. It's very easy for students to access them. So that's another very notable aspect of campus life, because while the clubs and societies make sure that campus stays a very active space where there's quite a lot of events happening all the time, there's also sports and fitness activities, which is in one sense a way to de-stress yourself, to make sure that you're making room for all your sport-related interests. Up next, we have the library. So our new library is about 30,000 square feet. So it's pretty big and it's open 24/7, except for national holidays. So this is actually one of the most stellar facilities, because students who cannot, let's say, read in their rooms a lot, or you need a break from the academic spaces of like a classroom or your own dorm room, right? In that kind of a setup, we do have a lot of reading rooms in the library. So apart from the fact that, yes, it is a really huge archive of books, as you can see, there's about 99,400 plus print volumes available. There are more than 413,000 ebooks and around 20,000 e-journals. But the kind of rooms that I was talking about is, apart from it being an archive of a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of room for self-study, we also do have a lot of seating areas. So there's about 500 plus seats available. So these kinds of seats are like, you would have group study rooms, you have meeting rooms, you have research cabins. So there's also room to make sure if you and your friends just want to come together and study for a particular exam, that is something our library also is a very good space to do. And when students travel home for like a summer break or a winter break, they also have remote access to a large variety of resources. So our library really ties together the fact that it is a research university, and it makes a lot of room for students from the get-go. So students from the very first year are sort of inducted into all the facilities of the library, and that makes the climate, the fact that there's a lot of academic rigor, so that makes the rigor a lot easier to deal with. So our library is quite supportive in that for all students. Up next, we have residence life. I had already peeked into some of the questions, and I see that students are asking about it. So you can see that every student is allotted an air-conditioned room on a twin sharing basis. So all students enrolled in the undergraduate program do stay on campus. You can see that student rooms consist of a bed, a chair, table, and a cupboard per student. So there's like a set of two in every room. You also have a pantry on every floor. So while we have a very good dining system where there is like, all your meals are technically covered, there is some provision in case students would just like to cook something for themselves. Again, this is optional. There's no requirement for you to cook. But it's quite comforting to know that, on every floor, there is a pantry where you have an induction, a water cooler, a refrigerator, microwave, and kettle, right? So these are like mostly the fundamentals you require to have a functional kitchen of any sort. So it's really helpful for days where you just want to make Maggie or like chai. And there are a lot of outlets on campus. So, usually the amount of proportion of students who end up using the pantry very actively are quite small. But it is a very inclusive thing to know that, okay, at any point on campus, you may just have your buffer resources in your room and you could just cook something up quickly. You also have the My Ashoka app for all services. So basically, from booking of classrooms for like, events, from booking of housekeeping services and any additional like technical services. So the My Ashoka app is very easy and accessible. So students can just put a request online, and basically that helps them, get any of the services covered in the residence hall. And then we also have the Dorm Olympics. So now coming to this other aspect of residence life, the entire resident community comes together for this intercollegiate fest. And it's basically an aspect of celebrating dorm life. You get a lot of competitive events. So yes, the events are as quirky as Pani Puri eating competition. That's basically one of the pictures I've put out here. And then you also have participation from a lot of different stakeholders. So it's not just for students. Yes, it's largely run and managed by students, but they do like to include support staff, admin. So you do see also an inclusive environment. You see all of them sort of compete in a lot of these cultural activities, and it's a very satisfying, nice time to be on campus. Another weekend to note is the Great Ashokan Weekend. It's a 2-day wide campus-wide break, which is designed to combat any academic stress. So usually it's, scheduled around your finals to make sure that students can just relax. We have some time to enjoy with each other. This is organized by the Ashoka University resident assistants. So as Mercia mentioned RAs earlier, those are research assistants. But at Ashoka, this is another very interesting addition that every floor has a resident assistant. And resident assistants are often third year or fourth year students. It's a paid position. But what happens is that they basically make the living experience very inclusive for our students, right? So these seniors often help students, welcome them on campus. So your RAs are the ones who organize the Great Ashokan Weekend as well. But it really breaks that idea that, if you're living in dorm life, that has to be of a certain kind. Your resident assistants are making sure that everybody on the floor is having a good experience. So you're settled in on campus. They make sure that you're not facing any active troubles. And that breaks this whole dynamic of, um, having, let's say, a warden that's unapproachable. So then you do have your resident assistants are your first point of contact. And then they kind of, if there is any issue that needs to be escalated, then they sort of take it up to your wardens. But that also means that they are seniors who have gone through similar residential issues, right? So again, that's one of the biggest like facilities. But you can see here with the Great Ashokan Weekend that your RAs organize a lot of events. So the events in the Great Ashokan Weekend look like movie screenings, workshops. There's quite a lot of fun activities where even faculty and students sort of engage together in an informal manner. Um, and then we have a lot of different support facilities. So I would like to mention that since it's a residential university, we are aware that, students feeling comfortable on campus doesn't just extend to, making sure you're doing good, like in your dorm room or, making sure you have a good residential experience. But it also means that there are a lot of facets where we ensure that students are supported through and through. So you have the Office of Learning Support. They ensure that students who have any kind of learning or physical disabilities or impairments, they are fully supported on campus. So Ashoka University is quite an inclusive campus in that regard. We also have the Ashoka Center for Wellbeing. So the Center for Wellbeing offers counseling services, so to students, faculty, and staff. And these counseling services are not offered at any additional cost, right? So I'll go over that. But the idea is that even in the first semester, even if you're just feeling a sense of homesickness, you want to be able to talk to someone about it, but like the space might feel too new. And you do have someone to go to, and these are trained professional counselors, right? And then we have the Office of Student Affairs. So they create a robust living environment outside the classroom. So they're the ones to make sure that, while you might have your academics in order, they want to make sure that you have just as much fun on campus. So you have that sort of residential support offered by the Residence Life and Student Care offices. You also have the Center for Writing and Communication. While we had sort of mentioned this in the earlier center slide, but I do want to also say that the services for the CWC are very helpful because as it's a research university, for a lot of students, it might be their first time writing a research paper. And it might be your first time, like sort of sitting with academic research. And that means that when it comes to writing and creating research, you might want some assistance, you might want some support. And while your classroom and your professors are very helpful in that area, you also get additional writing support through the CWC. So you can just book an hour with any of the CWC, tutors and mentors. So they help edit and review and write academic papers and assignments. So this is actually a great way to make sure that the focus is on the cognitive aspect, and you get support in guiding you on how to express that better. Another thing I'd like to mention is that when it comes to medical services on campus, the space itself is equipped with 16-bedded infirmary, which is set up for primary health care. And campus also has an ambulance, which is available 24/7. All students of the university are covered under an insurance of 1 lakh, which is for hospitalization of 24 hours or more. And we also have tie-ups with hospitals around. So I'll just maybe, take a second before we move ahead. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So while we've just taken you over the academic and some of the residential aspects, now I'll hand it back to Mercia to go over the admissions process.
Okay, thank you, Madhuri. That was fantastic. Just to be able to experience a little bit of university life and campus through you. So what I want to do, probably what you're waiting for, is really talk about the admissions process, to talk about the application process, the admissions process, the selection. And I've seen a little bit of some of the questions that have come in as well, and interesting questions. But let's just get right into it. As you know, in the beginning, I talked about holistic liberal education, and then we've talked about all the things, exciting things that happen on campus. What I want to do now is spend some time on the holistic admissions process, right? And let me just say that the admissions process has been created keeping in mind the education that happens at Ashoka. So what we're doing from the admissions perspective is trying to find students and select students and handpick students who would fit into the Ashoka education model and would be able to do well there. It doesn't matter what background you come from or what exposure you've already had. We're looking for students through our process to identify students who we think will not just survive, but actually thrive and be successful in the liberal arts and science model of learning, right? And hence our admissions process is also holistic. Okay, so it's a quick overview, and this is the overview of the admission cycle, right? We have one admission cycle in a year, so we start, and I'll show you the calendar in just a minute. We start in October, and we bring in the cohort towards the latter part of August, the following year. So, for example, we've started this October in 2025. We're looking for students and selecting students who will come in August of 2026, right? We have 4 submission deadlines, or 4 rounds as we call them, and you can apply in any of the rounds. And it's a repetitive process. So we do the same thing in each round. We're not doing something different in other rounds. So what I'm going to tell you is the admissions process that happens in each round, right? So there are 3 stages. Stage 1 is the application and assessments. So if you've not had a chance already, now is a good time, if you are applying this year, to look at the application form. The application form is a comprehensive form. I'll talk about the details of the application form, but it will take you a little bit of time to fill that form, right? And you can decide when you want to submit it within the larger deadline, but in the 4 rounds, you can decide which round you want to submit. Once you submit an application form within a certain round, there are mandatory Ashoka assessments. There's an on-the-spot essay and an aptitude assessment. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well, along with how we're going to implement it. And we've made some changes there this year, but they're mandatory. So if you submit an application form and you don't take the Ashoka assessments, then we can't process your application form further, right? So your application form will not be eligible to be processed further. So these two go really hand in hand, and these are really the first steps. Then what happens is we evaluate your assessments and we evaluate your application form. Your application form is read, is evaluated, the assessments are graded, and we make a comprehensive and a more thorough evaluation of your candidature. And some people will get shortlisted for the interview round. Those who don't get shortlisted will fall off at that stage. But if you get shortlisted for the interview round, then you move to stage 2. If you don't get shortlisted for the interview round, you will be informed within that round that you have not been shortlisted. Okay, so we will inform you. If you do get shortlisted, then there's a mandatory interview with the panel, and the panel is with a 2-member panel, or it can be a single interview if it's a senior person, and it will be online as of now, but it could also be in person if the admissions committee decides, right? In some cases. So the interview round, again, I'll talk a little bit more about this. It's a holistic, interview. But what the committee will do is look at your application and your assessments, look at your interview, look at all parts, and then do a holistic evaluation of you as a candidate, which moves you to stage 3. You will get a decision, and there are multiple decisions you can get. But if you do get an offer of admission, then you get the opportunity to avail of some scholarships. So we have introduced some scholarships. I'll talk about that as well. So if you get a merit scholarship, you'll get it along with your offer letter. If you don't get a merit scholarship, you've got an offer of admission, you still, need some amount of scholarship to fund your education. You can apply for the need-based scholarship, and anybody can apply, right? And that's a whole different process. I'll talk briefly about that as well. And then within that same round, you have the option to accept your offer or decline your offer of admission. So this is broadly what happens. And so the process is long, but as you can see, the dates have already been published. We're hoping that we will stick to these dates. The dates for all rounds are published on the website. The application form was opened on 13th October. There are 4 submission deadlines. You can choose whichever one you want to apply within. The round in which you submit your application form will be the round in which you then take your assessments, right? So I would just say that if you feel that, I'm applying in round 3, which is 3rd May, but 10th of June, you have some other exam and you know that already, or you feel that you won't be able to take the Ashoka assessments, I would request you to decide to apply in an earlier round or in a later round, right? So the decision is yours. There are plenty of options. I would discourage you from applying in a certain round and then trying to see how you can adjust or change the date for your assessments. That won't be possible. You will be moved to a following round. So it's not going to be helpful for you, right? So think about it. You have plenty of options. Think about it. Think about the round you wish to apply in and what that would entail for you over the next couple of months, right? For example, if I had to say round 1, the application deadline is 26 November. Assessment date is 7th December. You'll get a decision by 28th January on 2026, and then you get to accept your offer or decide, if Ashoka is where you want to study by 18th February, right? So broadly, this is like round one, right? So you similarly in round two, round three, round four, we've put the date, so please look at it and plan ahead. Okay, so moving on to the application bit, just some guidelines for you to keep in mind, right? So you can submit only one application form within the admission cycle. If you submitted an application form in round one, and if things didn't work out for you, if you submit an application form in round three, that won't be considered. It will be not eligible. Similarly, if you're copying, pasting, and if there's any sort of malpractice, your application will not be considered. On the other hand, also please remember that often, if you're using a school email address, you might not have access to it. So we request that you use a personal email address as much as possible, unless you know for sure that your official school or institutional email address is going to be valid for the next 4 years, right? That's helpful. Otherwise, please use a personal email address. We highly recommend that you fill your application form by yourself. Give yourself a couple of weeks at least to work on your application form. It is a little detailed, but you can look at the application form. You can go to any section of the application form and start filling it and saving it as you go further or move to different sections. But please give yourself some time to think and fill. There are a lot of details in the form that we would request you to fill. Also, on the website, we've put a criteria for not eligible and eligible, or not eligible and incomplete application. Form criteria are on the website. So have a look, fill in the details. Don't fill it in a hurry. If you think you're going to be able to fill the form in the last day or 2 days and submit it, I would say please don't. If there is a next round available, submit in the next round, right? Give yourself some time, because it will take some time for you to fill. Use the help boxes on the form for information and details. We've put a lot of stuff in the application form, so that should help you. And towards the end, when you feel like you've done with your application form, you've written your essay, you've filled all aspects, if you're comfortable to have somebody look at the application form to check it and review your application before submission, please go ahead. You can also reach out to our team for help or for questions that you may have. And once you submit the application form, take your mandatory Ashoka assessments, right, in the round in which you submit your form. So this is something that you should keep in mind, right? One part of a sentence that I haven't written here, but I want you to know, is that don't only fill the mandatory parts. The more we know about you, the better it is for you, the better it is for us. So if there's some information that you can give us about yourself in the non-mandatory sections as well, fill that in as well. Of course, only relevant information. You don't have to fill it if you don't have anything to say, but look at it as a window that a bunch of strangers sitting in an office somewhere are going to look at and try to get to know you, right? You may or may never meet us in person, but this is your chance to really tell us about yourself. And this is the first point, or the first and possibly the most important manner in which we can get to know you before there is a decision on whether you will be shortlisted for the interview or not. So take your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just walk you through the application form real quick, okay? And I'm keeping an eye on the clock because we do have to cover a lot of ground, but we also will take your questions, as many as possible. So if you look at the components of the application form, you'll see that there are personal and family details. Then there's a space for school academics. There's a place for standardized tests, which are all of these are sort of, we want to get to know you, about you, your family, your background. We want to know about your academic experience. We want to know about the standardized tests. Then there's a section on non-academic engagements. I'll talk about all of these quickly. And then there's a small section on reading. As you can see from the beginning of this conversation, we've been talking about reading, academic reading, writing, research, which is a big part of Ashoka. So we'd really like to know sort of your reading interests. And then, of course, Madhuri showed you the picture of this massive library that we have, which is a big part of the Ashoka experience, right? Then there's a essay section. We have a brief section on recommendation letter, but we ask only for recommenders' details. Then there's a survey and course preference section. And then finally, there are two sections which are very important: an admissions assessment section, and I will talk about that a little bit because this time we've made some changes. And of course, also a section that asks you about any support requirements that you might need. Okay. And in many parts of this form, there are going to be attachments that are required. So please note that wherever attachments are required, please attach the right document. Ensure that it's clear. Ensure that it's got all the requirements on it, and that it's going to be visible. We open all your forms. We look at all your documents, right? And so it's important that you do that. Okay. You might be wondering why we're asking you all these things. So I'm going to quickly run through and tell you why we want to know. You can read a lot of this on your own, but I just want to run through this. When we look at an applicant, the reason we want to know about your personal and your family information is because it really does give us an insight into who you are, into your life, your background, the context of the applicant, so that we can evaluate you in a holistic manner, right? So we ask you a lot of details, like I said, mandatory, non-mandatory, but the aim is to get to know you. So the more you can tell us about where you're from, it really helps us make a decision, right? We do ask you about your academic scores from classes 10th onward, 10th, 11th, 12th. If you don't have 12th, obviously you will submit predicted scores, but we're not going to base any decisions that we make purely on one aspect, right? And I know a lot of you will have questions about scores and about what are my, what percentage should I get, right? But please note that, of course, you do have the opportunity now if you're in class 12th. If you've graduated already and are a gap year student, then you know your scores. But if you are in your class 12th, maybe you have the opportunity now to really focus and do well. But regardless of that, we are looking for academic consistency. We're looking for rigor. We're looking to see that, are you somebody who, as you're learning, you're also focusing and you're doing well, right? So hence we ask you for those scores, and we do, of course, value the effort and the hard work that you put into your academics, right? If you are an IB or a Cambridge student, then you will get a link. A link will go to your counselor, and you'll have to provide their details. So for them to submit the scores, but for otherwise, all boards, you can submit self-predicted scores if you don't have a school counselor and you don't want, or you don't have someone who can, from your school. But if you do, you can put self-predicted scores and you can put your counselor scores, right? So these are just for us to get an idea about what you're expecting, particularly if you're in class 12. We've also got a bunch of standardized tests that we're asking you for. We understand that some of you may have done your SAT or ACT. Of course, many of you might be also doing the CUET. And then there are others who might be from science backgrounds, and you have probably you've done your JEE mains, or you're going to do it, or you've taken the ISA test. So you've already invested a lot of time, in these assessments and preparing for them. And if you've done well, we're happy to accept them, right? But they're not mandatory. No standardized tests are mandatory because we do have our own Ashoka aptitude assessment, which is mandatory. But we do want you to have the opportunity to tell us, right? And of course, gap year students are very welcome to apply at Ashoka. We always have many gap year students, and many of them do very well, and they've had lot more experiences between school and applying, and so we're able to assess that in a slightly different manner as well. Okay, I'm going to move quickly here and just talk to you about the non-academic section. Well, we do talk a lot about academics. The non-academic section or the non-academic engagements that you do are very important for us at Ashoka because it really tells us what you do outside of your academics, right? How do you use your time? How do you use your resources? How do you use your energy, right? How do you use your money? Like, where are you really investing in? So unfortunately, many of you might be doing a lot of things, but we are not going to focus on the lot of things. We want you to prioritize and tell us of the three main things that are your interests and activities, okay? Things that you really care about, things where what you're passionate about. Could be interests, could be extracurriculars, could be leadership positions, could be competitive level activities, awards that you've been training for, pursuing, or just hobbies at home, right? No one's giving you a certificate for it. That's okay, but it's something that you love, or community service, internships, whatever it is that you have invested your time in that you're passionate about. Okay, so that's what it is. And if there's anything that is not a personal activity and there are certificates and collateral, any sort of awards or inter-school, or maybe even within school, or district, zonal, national, international, whatever you may have done, if there's any collateral for it, please support your activities with that. Yeah, and please don't attach a resume. Okay, we won't accept your resume. We want you to prioritize and you to tell us what you really care about and what you're passionate about. And like I said, reading is a big part of our Ashoka education. So we've asked you to list mandatorily three, genres, three books with authors that you like reading. It could be anything. You could be reading anything, like you can see the list here. It could be fiction or prose or poetry, or it could be comic and graphic novels, right? We're okay. We need to know that you're reading them, right? It could be academic stuff as well, but of course not part of your school curriculum, or it could be nonfiction, biographies, self-help. I mean, we're okay with anything as long as you're the ones reading it, right? And some of you might be real readers, right? And you're like, 3 is too less. I want to add more. So you do have the option to add 2 more. So please go ahead and do that. Okay. So the personal essay is something that I want to talk about briefly. This is an important part of the application form. We have one essay this time, right? And the essay is for us to get to know how you think, get to know you, your background, your motivation to apply to Ashoka, and it also gives you the space to sort of reflect. We're expecting it to be for 400, 500 words, between 400 to 500 words, right? My humble request, please don't put the prompt in an AI tool and get an essay of 400, 500 words. And the reason I'm saying that is this is a personal essay. This is your chance to tell us about you. I'm honestly okay if you take your essay and try to make it better, right? Use some tools. If you want to fix some grammar, if you want to change a sentence structure, that's fine. If you want to have somebody else look at it and help you as well, if you're comfortable with that, please do. But the core of your essay, what you want to communicate, what you're talking about, please let it be from you, because that's important to us. We are going to read that essay. We are going to look at it, and we are going to decide, along with everything else, if your essay as well is something that, really adds value to your application and makes sense, it will contribute to your evaluation, our evaluation of your application, okay? So please, let it be original content. Don't copy-paste somebody else's life story. And tell us about yours, right? And if you do get shortlisted for the interview, we will have a conversation about it. So you can read the prompt. I don't want to get into it, but the prompt is simple. And yet, it expects that you reflect, you think about it. Please stick to the word limit. Don't give us a 100-word essay. And don't give us an 800-word essay either, right? There's 400 to 500 words. It should be sufficient for you to think, to write a few drafts, think about what you want to talk about. You may have many things to talk about, but you may not have the space, right? So think about what you want to write, and and maybe have somebody look at it who you trust, right? This will really give us an insight into you. So it is a personal essay. I'm repeating, it is a personal essay. Please don't, give us a generic essay that's not original to you. There's a section on, letter of recommendation, and then there's a survey section that asks you for your major preferences. Of course, a letter of recommendation is not mandatory, but if you have somebody you want to give, whose details you want to give, who's willing to recommend you, someone who you know in an academic or professional capacity, please put in their details. If we need to know more about you, we will contact them. The survey section asks you for your preferred majors, but please note that this is indicative in nature. And like I said, at the end of the third semester is when you are going to declare your major, right? But this will allow you to think about what you want to do, maybe have a conversation in the interview, and have the opportunity to tell us what are your areas of interest academically. Okay. This is an important part for those of you who might need some additional support. And like we mentioned previously, that there are support sections, support systems, support offices, centers available to support you on campus. But even before that, during the admissions process, we would like to support you, right? So if you need English language assistance, if you have a disability, whether it's cognitive, visual, hearing, locomotor, whether it's a language issue, a speech issue, physical health, or whether it's an impairment, whether it's visual or hearing impairment, or whether it's a mental health concern, or anything else that you have, that you face, that you've had support required for, and you need some support, then please mention it in the application form. We have a support section. It's confidential. We do want you to tell us. There is a section on it that also allows you to talk about maybe any sort of disadvantage that you have. So please tell us. We'll keep it in mind while we are processing your application, right? So in some cases, you might need extra time. In some cases, you might need a scribe. In some cases, you might need some additional support of a different kind. We want to help you. So please put it. In some cases, you might be asked to put a document as well. So if you have any diagnoses, any documents, please tell us, and that'll be a very important part of the application process. Quickly moving to the next step is the Ashoka assessments. Like I said, they're mandatory. This is very self-explanatory, but there's an on-the-spot essay for 30 minutes and an Ashoka aptitude assessment for 90 minutes. If we approve additional extra time for you, if you approve any extra time for you, then this will change. We'll give you some additional time for both sections. However, the essence of the assessment is the same, right? We're really looking through the on-the-spot essay and through the Ashoka aptitude assessment. We're looking for you to show us if you're able to read something, think about it, and respond, right? We want to know your ability to think, your clarity of thought, your ability to maybe articulate and communicate your ideas in the essays. In the Ashoka aptitude assessments, they're multiple choice questions, but they're all questions that require you to think, right? And they're problem solving, sort of, right? They do include mathematics, class 10, 11 concepts till then. If you've not done mathematics in class 9 and 10, it's okay. You will still have to attempt the assessment, but we do know that you don't have mathematics, and so we will be mindful of that, right? But for most of you, I'm assuming that you do have mathematics. The Ashoka aptitude assessment allows you to be able to sit with the prompt, sit with the questions, understand them, and address them. You don't really need prior information. And for your clarity, we do have some sample questions on the website, both for the on-the-spot essay and the Ashoka aptitude assessment. There are prompts, there are questions. Please have a look just to kind of familiarize yourself, right? So this would be helpful. So the big change that we've made for this year is that we have moved to an in-person physical testing model, right? So there are going to be test centers around the country in India with locations in some states. There might be multiple locations, and but we are looking at around 39 cities, 39 locations across India, and we've tried to ensure that your travel time is not too much. There will be some travel time. Once the round deadline is over, you will get a hall ticket from us, which will give you all the details. But in your application form, you have to pick the city where you want to take your assessment. So please pick the city where you want to take your assessment, which is comfortable for you, the closest to you and closest to where you are. We do have one center at the Ashoka campus as well in Sonipat. And so that's something, if you want to do that, that's fine as well. But otherwise, there should be a center that is to some extent around where you are, given some travel time, right? So go ahead and pick that. And please pick, if you're giving a assessment on a certain date, and the dates are all published, right, already, that you should know that you'll be in that city on that date, right? And so please pick accordingly. If there's any sort of emergency, any, something unusual that has come up, of course, you can write to us and we will see how we can help you. It's computer-based, so you're not writing with paper and pen. We'll provide you with rough paper and pen, but otherwise, it's you just don't need to bring anything, right? And it's going to be on the computer, on a screen with a certain a platform that we use. I just want to say that if you're not a resident of India, and if you're a student with some form of mobility or locomotor issues or hearing or visual impairments, we will make some considerations and we will reach out to you specifically outside of what's happening for students who are applying from within India, or students who are applying without any of these concerns. So we will reach out to you and we will help you do your assessments, okay? We're not going to make you make it hard for you, but we will do our best to support you in whatever way. So if you're not in India, please do choose, I'm not a resident of India, I don't live in India. That's what we've asked. And if you have chosen a place, but you do have any of these considerations that, these physical concerns or impairments, then we will reach out to you, the Office of Admissions will reach out to you, okay? So overall, if you're not getting extra time, you need 120 minutes, right? 30 plus 90. And of course, if you're getting extra time, you'll get additional time for both the essay and the aptitude assessment. I know you'll have a lot of questions about this, but I think when you're filling the app form, when you come to the section towards the end where you need to pick your city, please look at it. The way we've listed the cities is we've put the state and then we've put the city. So please go down the whole list before picking something so that what you pick will be where you actually will take your assessments. Okay. I know we need to get going real quick here and we're almost wrapping up. Just very quickly, there's a shortlisting process, right? After you take your assessments, like I said, and then if you're shortlisted for the interview, it will most likely be on an online platform on Zoom. Unless some interviews are to be in person, we will contact you about that. But it's usually, it's mandatory. And it has a personal aspect to it and it has an academic aspect to it, right? So we evaluate in the interview, we'll talk about you in your personal context. We'll talk about your academic interests and your non-academic interests. And essentially, we're gauging your suitability to Ashoka's academic and residential life programs. So that's what we're trying to do in the interview. And so be yourself, be calm, talk about what you put in your application form. Right? We do want to see how well you've engaged with your form, with yourself, with kind of your world around you, okay? And of course, the duration can vary a little bit here and there. The more you're able to contribute to the interview, the better the interview will be, right? So that's how it works for us. You do have a slot, so you can pick your own date, you can pick your own slot when we open them up, and then we'll send you all the details. Okay. Once that's done, the admissions committee comes up with decisions. So you can get a firm offer of admission, even if you don't have your class 12 scores. If you get a firm offer, you only need to pass your class 12 successfully. We're hoping you will still do well. You can get a conditional offer where it's dependent on if you meet your class 12 predicted scores, or you might be put on a wait list, which might convert to an offer if there's availability of seats towards the end of the cycle. Sometimes we defer decisions where we say that we're not in a position to make you an offer right now. Given all the information we have, we'd like to wait for you to submit your class 12 final scores and the admissions committee will reevaluate So again, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just a matter of time, but they will reevaluate and you might get an offer. You may not get an offer, but you might get an offer as well, right? And finally, of course, unfortunately, some students will be denied admission if they don't meet the criteria that we're looking for. So these are sort of the admissions committee decisions. If I had to summarize our entire admissions process, our holistic admissions process, I can say it's only possible within your context, right? So we want to get to know you. We want to get to know you through the application form, through your assessments, through the interview. At every stage, we're looking to get to know you because we won't be able to do justice to you as a person if we don't see you in your context. So context really just fits the big puzzle for us, right? And tells us about you. And then we can offer you the support that you require based on any sort of personal struggles that you might have faced. So this is, in a nutshell, the admissions process. And before we take questions, I do want to share that, you probably know already that we have a very generous financial aid scholarship process that we've been following for many, many years, from the beginning of Ashoka, in fact, where a student gets an offer, can apply for, what we call the Ashoka for All need-based scholarship. If you were like, I got an offer, I want to study at Ashoka, but I don't have the resources, there's a separate process that you can apply for. There's an application form that opens the day you get your offer. You have 7 days time to fill in all the details and submit an application form. But this year, we're introducing additional merit scholarships that you can get along with your offer letter as part of, this new initiative. But before I get into that, just want to say that whether you get that or not, you can apply for need-based scholarships, right? So please don't think that if you didn't get a merit scholarship, you can't apply for a need-based scholarship. They are mutually exclusive. They're not dependent on each other. So if you get an offer, what you need to do is get an offer, right? So you work towards that. And then there's the next step. So what we've introduced are 200 additional merit scholarships this year to recognize, celebrate high achieving students. 50 of these are for exceptional academic achievers. So that's the special merit scholarships. And 150 of them are for overall performance in the admissions process. So if you meet any of these criteria, if you meet these, you'll get some form of scholarship with your offer letter the day your decision goes out. Even though you may get this, you can still apply for the need-based scholarship if you think that you need more. So please don't hold yourself back. We want you to do well. So, your academics are important. Your performance in the Ashoka admissions process is important. And if you get an offer, we want to walk alongside with you, whether it's the merit scholarship or whether it's a need-based scholarship. So on that note, I think what I'm going to do is just tell you that when you're thinking of coming to Ashoka, please know that we're expecting it to be a transformative experience. We want to help you understand that this is a time where you learn how to think and not just what to think. It's going to be different, your learning. You will get to understand yourself, learn multiple perspectives from diverse set of peers. You learn how to prioritize, take initiatives, ask for help. It'll push you out of your comfort zone, right? You learn how to live in a community. And everything that we spoke in the beginning, right? How it should transform you to contribute, to innovate, to contribute. So know that this is not just a degree, it's an education that will last your lifetime and not, so you will get the degree at the end of it, right? You will get that BA, BSc honors in the major that you choose. But our aim, our hope is that it will be transformative and you'll actually get an education. So that's what we're excited about. So please apply, all the deadlines have been published. You can apply in whichever round that you want to apply in. And our details are here, the application Contact details are also here in case you want support, you want to talk to somebody, or you want to write and ask and you have some queries. So, yeah, please go ahead and apply. So, on that note, I'm going to end and we will take some questions. I know we have a lot of questions, but Madhuri will moderate those questions for us. So, yeah, over to you, Madhuri. And I just want to say that we had planned this to be a slightly longer session because we wanted to cover a lot of things. There will be a recording, and so hopefully you will get to also watch this session. But for now, we'll take your questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mercia. This is extremely comprehensive, and I think we've exhausted as much as they could know at this stage and really benefit from, right? So first things first, I'll bracket some of the Q&A sections, right? So making sure that we're addressing most of what we're seeing in the Q&A box. So the first thing is on like different rounds. A lot of people are asking, is there any particular benefit in applying in a particular round? Is there a hierarchy? So please tell us, what are the rounds like? Is there a difference for students applying?
To be honest, at this point, and every year I say this, that the process is the same. The process is the same across rounds. We do encourage students to apply in the early rounds because, we are a residential program. We have a limited number of seats, right? Having said that, even if you, for whatever reason, if you really can't apply in the early rounds, but you wish to apply in rounds 3 or 4, please go ahead. Don't hold yourself back. If you're if you think that Ashoka is where you want to study, you feel that this would be a place, if you get the opportunity, you will do well, you have been a good student, you enjoy the learning process that Ashoka has to offer, please apply. If you want a very definitive answer, I would still say the rounds 1 and 2 are preferable usually because a lot of students do apply who want to get done with the application process before they get into their board exams and get into all of that, right? So it also gives us a good idea administratively as to how many students we can take, and given that it is a residential program.
Thank you. We also have some questions on academic cutoffs. So for class 10, 11, 12, is there a particular cutoff? Or even for 12, there are students who are asking, if I haven't done so well in my boards in let's say class 10, but I've been improving since. So how do we accommodate for that in the admissions, assessment?
So we do look at all years of your performance, and we are very mindful of the fact that, you may have done really well in class 10th, and then you may have taken a stream maybe that you didn't really like, as you started doing it. And then maybe you saw some of your scores dip, right? The option we have is the mandatory assessment. So we do look at your assessment, or if you've taken the SAT, ACT, or any of the other standardized tests, we will take that in lieu of your class 11, 12 if you feel that you've done better there, right? On the other hand, you might be doing really well in 11th and 12th. You found the subjects that you love and you're doing well. But 10th, maybe you were like, oh, I had these couple of subjects I really did not like and I didn't do well. It's okay. The way we've created our support, our criteria is to say that not one aspect really stands out, right? So if you've not done anything in your non-academics, right, in your extracurriculars, if you haven't done anything, if you've only got high scores and you've not done anything else, that may also not be good for you in our process. It may not work for you in our process. On the other hand, if you're like, I've done a lot of things, but I've not really invested in anything, and nothing is really standing, I don't have anything to show for where I've really invested, that may also not work for you in our process. So but we're not going to say that just because nothing's working, but you've got this great score in class 10th, or you've got these great predictor scores in class 12, we're only going to go with that. So the reason we said it's a holistic admissions process is because we are looking at everything, and one thing doesn't have weightage over other things, whether it's really high or really low. So I think that should sort of cover this.
And that speaks to a very interesting question. What exactly does Ashoka looks for in students for granting them admission? Is it in terms of academics, mindset, and or potential?
I think it's a number of things. And if I had to say, I know this question comes every year, every round, everybody is always wanting to know, what are you really looking for? Well, who's an ideal student? There is no ideal student, right? There's no person that we can look at and say, that's an Ashoka student. This is the kind of student that everybody should aspire to be. If you come to Ashoka, you'll see that's not true as well, because that's not what we're looking for. I think what we're looking for is, we know what Ashoka is like, and we know the Ashoka academic journey. We know the residential life programs. We know what's available. And then we're looking to see, do students have the potential to succeed, right? So yes, because like I said in the beginning, that we're looking at an academic curriculum that forces you to explore, that forces you to do academic reading, and that forces you to think, do critical thinking and research and writing. We're looking to see, if you were given the opportunity and if you were trained, would you be able to do well in that, right? So that's one aspect. On the other hand, we want to see that you have sufficient drive and passion to follow the things that you're passionate about. We want to see and know that you're somebody who knows yourself to some extent. You're able to reflect, right? You're able to look at the world around you, look at what's going on, and be able to ask questions. You're the kind of person who cares. We're not looking for students who don't care. We are looking for students who care about the world, who want to problem solve, who take initiatives, right? So everything I'm saying now is everything that we've been saying from the beginning of this session, because it all ties in together. So I think in a sense, so there's no, so please don't think that, I don't come from a certain background, I don't have certain resources, Ashoka is not the place for me. Not at all. I mean, that's like the last thing you should think of, right? Or I went to a certain school, I don't have exposure. Again, those are not the criteria that we're looking at. On the other hand, just because you have a lot of exposure, just because you might have gone to a certain kind of school and you say, I see students from my school going to Ashoka, that doesn't mean anything either. So we're interested in you, right? We're interested to see if you will succeed at a place, at the education and the residential life at Ashoka. And so we're evaluating based on that.
Yeah, definitely. And for an application which is usually perceived as a two-dimensional document, I think we go above and beyond to make sure that students can reflect as many, like dimensions of who they are. So we look at all their interests and hobbies just as much. So another question academically is that I have opted for NIOS board, but I don't have maths as a subject. Does this impact my chances of admission?
It doesn't. It might impact the chance of what you want to pursue, right, in your major. We do have some options around that as well. In fact, let me just say this now, and I don't know if it's a question, but we don't have a BBA program. We have a BSc in management that we're launching. The BSc in management is the one program that mandatorily requires you to have mathematics in classes 11th and 12th. All the other disciplines such as physics, economics, mathematics, and computer science also require you to have mathematics, but they have made an allowance where if you're really keen on doing that major, you have an option to try and prove yourself by taking a calculus eligibility test and doing a calculus course, getting a certain grade to basically prove to the department that you can handle the program, that particular major. And they'll let you do it then, right? But if you can't handle the mathematics in these majors, you won't be able to do the major. So as an example, and let me just say, I don't know if these questions have come, but as an example, if you're not able to do the econometrics part, the mathematics bit, or the quantitative aspect of the economics majors, any of the economics majors, in fact, all of them, you will not proceed to get to the point where you're studying the actual theoretical economics. So that's how the courses are designed, because some of these courses are heavily quantitative. So if you're applying to Ashoka and you want to do certain disciplines, but you know that you're going to struggle, I would say that think about other majors that you might also want to explore in case this does not work out. There is a possibility, there is a journey that you can go through to try and ensure that you get the major, right? And And if you do and you prove yourself, nobody's going to stop you. So like I said, except for the BSc in management, everything else you can explore. And yeah, and we won't, and even what you put in the application form, we won't hold you to it. You can change your mind and only declare a major at the end of the third semester. But I hope I've sort of covered the different aspects of this.
Yeah, definitely. There's another question on what is competitive SAT score for Ashoka, and I'm sure we get this for all sorts of standardized tests.
Let me answer this again. For all standardized tests, there are students who have scored a 1590, maybe 1530 and above, and have not made it to Ashoka. There might be a student who has scored a 1450 and has made it to Ashoka. It doesn't matter. Okay, so my point is, it doesn't matter. It's not one score. We're not doing admissions like how it's done in many places, where that particular SAT score or that particular class 12 score defines admission or not. So I want to say this again, that we do holistic admissions, right? You may have had a bad day when you took your SAT and it didn't work out and you didn't have a chance to take it again. We have the Ashoka Aptitude Assessment. You can take it, do well, get through the process, but don't get stuck on the exact scores, right? And maybe this might be difficult because you're on the other side and you're applying and you want to know, but that's kind of life, right? It's ambiguous. And I think Ashoka will train you to also deal with further ambiguity. And it's okay. You need to be okay with it. I think what we really want is that you're telling us that this is the best I can do, this is the best I've got, and I'm putting it out there. I'm telling you everything. And then we'll put you through the process. And hopefully it'll work out for many of you. But that's the way we're looking at it.
Okay, some questions on the application form. What sorts of books should I mention in the application form?
Whatever you're reading. Please don't put books that you haven't read. Please don't put books that you have bought or ordered and kept in your house and looked at the cover. Please don't put books that you've heard about, that other people have read and liked. Just put what you've read. Doesn't matter what it is. We've showed you the list of things that you could explore. Just tell us what you did. And maybe you're not a reader and maybe you've only read 3 books, and that's okay. We just want to sort of explore and see and get to know what it is that you are reading. So don't get stuck on the kind of book, at least, if you think you need to read 3 books now and they make sense to you, please put them down. Read it and then put them down. But know that there might be a detailed conversation in it in the interview if you do get shortlisted. So, we're not asking you to forcefully put something in, right? Put what you really enjoyed.
Yeah, and some question on what differentiates a non-academic activity from the academic achievements that we have to mention in the application form.
There is a section under your class 12 where you can put academic achievements that you have done. Maybe you took AP courses, or maybe you did a research project with somebody that you worked on, which is academic in nature. In the class 12 section below that, there is a place for you to put that. Maybe you were part of Olympiads. Maybe you were part of, maybe you've pursued certain, some of your academic interests, done some courses on Coursera. You could have done academic things outside, right? So that's the section for that. But in the non-academic section, where we ask you about your non-academic engagement, we want to know about your hobbies, your extracurriculars, your passions, your interests, right? Maybe it's baking, maybe it's football, maybe it's Bharatanatyam, maybe it's writing, maybe it's, music. The list could be anything, right? Anything that you're passionate about. Maybe it's cooking. It could be anything. Maybe for some of those you do have, or for example, actually, maybe you're like a student council president, right? And that's where you've invested a lot of time. Maybe you're passionate about leadership. You're passionate about getting things done. You're an organizer. You're an editor. You like, creativity. You like working on the school magazine, whatever it is, right? Please tell us about that stuff. We want to know what you've done there. I think I've seen a lot of students who've also started businesses, particularly during COVID, like run some online business and stuff. And that's been great. I mean, they've done it. They were really excited about it at that point. Some have carried on. Just tell us where you're investing your time, where you're investing your resources, where you're investing your energy, right?
Yeah. And the next question, maybe I can just take because you've spoken about it enough throughout the session, but can I change my major from what I've declared during the time of, filling the application? Yes, definitely. Two things you need to keep in mind. One, while filling the application, do go through the maths policy we have for different majors, like Mercia has also mentioned earlier. This is important because you will need mathematics for some of these majors, so just get a sense of that. But at the same time, we don't hold you to the preferences you put in the application. They're indicative. They help us in having effective conversations throughout the admissions process. But, you're free to change, and the majors only get declared at the end of the third semester. So just know that, whatever you're putting, a good way to think about it is, what am I most interested in right now? What do I think I want to pursue my undergraduate degree in? And that sort of certainty is enough for you to, indicate your preferences. Some questions we have on the essays. What are some things that boost our application? So what do you look forward to reading in our essays?
I think this essay is very interesting. Excuse me, my throat. This essay is very interesting because it's not a generic essay. So it's got to be something about you, right? We try to understand things that have happened in your life or your environment, really, your background, that has sort of made you who you are, that has brought you to this place, right? To even the fact that you've decided that, I want to pursue this particular major, right? So I can tell you, I mean, of course, there was no liberal arts education when I was applying to university like 100 years ago. But, at some point we had to choose what we wanted to do, right? And I remember that it was very hard to make that choice. Of course, we didn't have the opportunity to explore. So whatever you decided is what you did. But even then, one liked many things and wanted to pursue many things. So even that decision making of ultimately what I decided was based on a lot of things that had happened in life and a lot of things that had made me become this person. So the choice between, the university I went to, you had to choose your course before you joined, right? And you had to apply for your course, which is very unfortunate, but that was what it was then. But even in that, to say, should I put this or should I put that? There was some thought about, where do I think I'm going to, what do you think I'm going to really enjoy? Really, where am I going to be able to really grow? So somewhere, I think this essay prompt is sort of like that. It's a reflective essay prompt. It's personal. So, and I'm guessing two applicants are not going to have the same sort of experience, right? So think of it as a personal essay, but it's reflective. And also, you can tell us how you think. How have you thought through that decision making? Why have you decided, Ashoka, why have you decided this major? What are some family sort of, or environment that you grew up in, whatever that might be? How has that sort of led you to becoming the person that you are? Maybe there was something that deeply disturbed you and bothered you. And so you said, you know what, I need to change something about myself. And so I've got to think differently about what I study, what I do in life. Or maybe you're not somebody who really thought too much about what was happening, but you still have some ambition, some plan, something that you want to explore. So yeah, it could take any direction you want. I hope it's heartwarming. I hope it's interesting for us to read. Also know the essay is the best place for you to really tell us about yourself, right? And we're really interested readers. Our entire team is very heavily invested in reading your essays. So.
Right. And I think it's also compared to a lot of objective parts of the application where you're reflecting how you've performed in certain tests or what kind of activities you're doing. The essays are like the only opportunity to really tell your story. And it means that you get to reflect who you are, how you think, right? So just as Mercia said, this is like you can really be the best expert on yourself. So do note that, the essay is a chance to actually challenge yourself, even if it's through reflection. And that might bode some really nice fruit if you just sit down with the question. Yeah. Yeah, some question on AI usage. How do we determine AI content in the essays?
I think that's for us to do, right? I mean, that's for us to do and detect. Um, and the way AI is evolving, the way AI tools are evolving, the way um, AI tools to see if AI tools are being used are evolving. I mean, there's just so much going on, right? And there's as much as one can do. Having said that, your essay again is not the only deciding factor of whether you're going to get admission or not, right? So we'll see how that goes, right? I mean, I obviously know that people are going to take help, students are going to take help. In fact, I often tell my team that if they were not using AI to take help in the past when there was no AI, they were using counselors, parents, older siblings, friends, somebody or the other was always helping, right? So we're not saying that, suddenly now there's AI, it's just, we're going from 0 to 100, right? We're basically saying it's an additional new tool. It's just an easier access, right? But having said that, um, yeah, I mean, my request really, like I said, is, have your own thought, let it be original. You can get help to clean up your essay if you want. I'm okay with that. We're okay with that. But really put some thought into your prompt. It's a personal essay. It's not a generic prompt. So, and there's a reason for that, right? And the reason is really AI. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. But if you write it yourself, even if we had actually a note from somebody who said that I wrote the essay myself and then I ran it through an AI prompt, whatever, an AI generator. And it says that it's X percentage of AI generated, but I didn't use AI, right? So maybe some of you are better than AI and you can write much better. Or maybe some of you write in a way how AI has been writing. So, because it's also, getting information from everywhere and producing content in that manner, right? So don't worry about it. As long as it reveals what you want to tell us, it's fine. We will look at it in light of everything else.
Right. I'll take a break from the process-based questions because I spot something really fascinating. It's great to see so much effort is being put into understanding every student who's applying. But how does this translate into personalized attention in the course during, while students are studying in the college environment?
So there are a lot of support systems on campus, even for academics. So I think, I know this is not the place really to get into that in much detail, but let me just say that there are professors who have office hours apart from classroom lectures. There are teaching assistants or teaching fellows who are assigned in courses that you can go to. There are peer tutors who are basically your senior students within each department. There's the Office of Academic Affairs, which is also your first point of contact, which offers you advice, guidance, where to go, how to do for the more, when you're thinking about things. You're typically also given a faculty advisor, but they expect you to reach out to them. They're not going to come knocking on your door. So there are various avenues for personalized care. Your peers, your seniors, your RAs, your resident assistants, there's just so many people there who are willing to help, right? I think essentially what I usually tell students is that two things. One, you've got to learn how to prioritize. And two, you've got to learn how to ask for help, right? There's otherwise too much going on, right? So when there are a lot of options, if you prioritize top three things that you really want to accomplish, you can move forward. Something academic, something non-academic, something social, could be anything, right? But on the other hand, you've got to learn to ask for help. Asking for help is the best thing and the best way forward at Ashoka, because the support systems for personalized care exist. Whether it's just a cup of coffee or a chai and a chat with somebody, a venting session, that's also possible. So it doesn't have to be only academic, it can be social as well. Your RAs, your wardens, your residence life offices, student affairs, team members. So there are various people offering all kinds of support.
All right. And I'll maybe take one or two questions. So, what if a student had great debating skills, but due to some constraints, cannot produce any certificates? So, while you're entering any of your non-academic activities, right, in these extracurriculars, you can actually indicate what is the level to which you've explored an activity. So, you have from international, national, state levels for, competitions, things that you've pursued at that level, but don't hold yourself back if you have spent a lot of years doing something as a hobby. So even if you're engaging in, let's say, bird watching, there are times when students reflect that that's a personal activity. And even if you can't get the certificates for some kinds of activities, make sure that you're still able to prioritize activities that you've engaged with a lot or very deeply, or more recently try not to add activities from, let's say, sixth grade or seventh grade. They may not be a true reflection of who you are now. And at the same time, if you're engaging with something personally, you might have your own album if you're, let's say, like into photography. So if there's any kind of personal depiction which you can just put together and show it to us, that would be really helpful. That helps us know that, okay, you've actually engaged with a certain activity. But if you don't have certificates, don't think that that is going to directly impact your application in any way. Another thing is that when we speak about LORs, there's some question on, is it required? It is not a mandatory component. We covered that. But I would want you to say that even if there is like a chance that you've engaged with someone in a professional capacity, so notice that you cannot get it written from a sibling, so make sure you're getting it written by someone who's actually able to attest to your professional work experience, or even in your school if it's a teacher, principal. So that would be really helpful for LORs. So Mercia, right back to you. For the assessment scheduled on 7th December, what are the timings for this test? Will it be conducted online, from home, or from a specific center?
So if you're in India, the assessment, both the assessments, the on-the-spot essay and the aptitude assessment, will be conducted together. The timing is 10 a.m. in the morning, but there's also a slot. If it's assigned to you, there might be a slot late in the afternoon, but you will get to hear from us. But I just want to say that you will get a hall ticket. You'll have all the information on it about your based on the city that you pick in your application form, right? But you need to be at the venue 30 minutes prior to the time slot that you receive. For the most part, it will be the morning slot. So please plan. I also know that there are questions, and I've seen about what if I'm not available on the day of the assessment? I've got other things, some other exam to do, and I know CLAT is on the 7th of December. There'll be other maybe exams scheduled. Somebody's got pre-boards or mock exam on the same day. If that's the case, my request, if you're in India, if you're applying from here, please do not submit your application in the round where you cannot take the assessment. Having said that, if you are not a resident of India, or if you have some form of mobility issue or impairment, we will reach out to you. The Office of Admissions will reach out to you and find a suitable way to ensure that your assessments are done. But yes, they'll be in physical centers. They'll be in the city that you have chosen on your application form. So please be careful as you choose, and please be mindful of that.
All right. What is the weightage of the assessment in admissions? Does Ashoka recommend sources except for the sample question papers, which we do have on the website?
Yeah, we don't have sources out there, and I don't know if I can recommend any sources, but the sample questions are just to make you familiar with the kind of questions. You may not be familiar with them. Having said that, maybe you've done some assessments previously that might be similar, and so you have familiarity. The questions obviously won't be the ones on the sample papers, but the weightage, like I said, is if you do really well in your assessment and do well in other parts of your process, that'll be fine. You could do really well in the assessment, but not very well in everything else. It won't matter. It's not an entrance exam. So let's be clear on that. It's not an entrance exam, whether it's the aptitude assessment or the on-the-spot essay. So both parts of it, it's not an entrance exam. They're assessments. They're adding to your application. So please look at it that way. Don't look at it as if I do poorly in it, then, So if for some reason you don't do well in your assessment, but there are many other things that you have done in your application form, including your school academics and other parts of your application form that do show that you have done well, then there might be a chance that you might get shortlisted for the interview, right? So, of course, please attempt, do well, prepare yourself. You don't need too much content to prepare, but you can prepare yourself and try and understand. Look at the prompts that are put on the website for the on-the-spot essay, just to get you an idea of the kind of prompts, right? The kind of what is expected. Maybe practice a couple of them, and then practice the sample questions. It'll familiarize you with the process of the testing.
Yeah, definitely. And since you mentioned the interview, there are questions on the interview. What kind of questions are asked in the interview? Maybe both of us can maybe go over it one by one. So why don't you begin?
So the interview, like I said, is personal, academic, and residential, right? Sort of trying to evaluate your fit for all of them. So of course, we'll talk about what's in your application form. That's the base. The discipline that you pick, the majors that you pick, we'll discuss that. We want to know what you have done in your, in the last few years to explore in depth anything that you mentioned on the form, right? You can say that I love, I don't know, my favorite example is like, I love baking because I know nothing about baking. But if you say I love baking, then I'd like to ask you a few questions about baking, right? Because I want to know that if you say you like something, how have you engaged in it, right? So that's kind of how we've been looking at interviewing. So that's sort of the academic side, right? So it could be history, or it could be literature, or it could be physics or chemistry, or computer science. We'll engage with you on that, but we'll also equally engage with you on your non-academic activities and what you've done. Because we're really trying to see that if I've said all these things in my application form, how have I engaged with it? We'll also spend some time trying to get to know you, trying to see how you navigate your world, your relationships, your friendships, your family. How have you navigated situations in your life? Those are some aspects that we like to sort of explore as well. And and maybe sometimes, often the best interviews I find are interviews where one can really have a good discussion. So our interviews are a bit personal. They're also like a conversation. They're not necessarily like, we don't have 10 questions that we have lined up to ask you. We're looking at your application form. We're trying to get to know you. We're trying to see if the Ashoka model of education will be suitable for you, and then we make our recommendations based on that. So be yourself. Don't try to we're not really seeing how well you can market yourself, really. If I had to be very blunt, we really want to know you, right? Because often what happens is if you try very hard to be something that you're not, you will contradict yourself after a few minutes at something else. And those are very evident for all our interviewers, are seasoned interviewers. We interviewed for many years. And so it's very easy to pick up on those things, right? So the best would be just honest, genuine conversations, be yourself. A tip that I can give you is if you don't know something, please say you don't know. And my most favorite thing actually in an interview, and having done thousands and thousands of interviews at Ashoka, I can say, and I still continue to do interviews, I can say that what I really enjoy is when I can go away from a conversation with one of you and be like, I really learned something, because we come into those interviews not just to evaluate you, but we also come into those interviews with an open mind ourselves, because we're also like, okay, surprise us. We want to also learn, right? We're continuously learning and growing. So the interviews that I did 10 years ago at Ashoka and the interviews I do now are very different, not because I have changed that much. I suppose I have changed as well, but also because the kinds of students that are coming to us now have so much more exposure and are doing a range of very different things than students were doing 10 years ago, right? So the world has evolved, you have changed, I have possibly changed. And so the conversations have changed, but ultimately whatever is genuine and whatever is at the core of who you are and the conversations, the genuinity of it doesn't change. And I think that's kind of what we're looking for. Have I sort of answered that, Madhuri?
Yes, there is no way I can say anything that can add
Sorry,
to that.
You can add to that, though.
But really, it's an extension of the application form in some ways. So know that the syllabus is just you and your life. There is very little way in which we can give you samples for that. But that also means that it is going to be a conversation. So don't feel like you're showing up to a space where you're just going to be interrogated. That's really not what we desire either, like Murcia said. So yeah, maybe a few questions before we wrap up, because I see we're getting close to 8. What is the process for applying for merit-based scholarship? Just a quick go over.
So you
And
don't apply for merit-based scholarship. You don't apply. We will look at what we get from you in the application, in the interview, in the process, and we will give you the scholarship along with your offer letter. Right? What you can do is, if you feel you want more, you need more, you can apply for the need-based scholarship. On the other hand, let me just answer the next question that is quite obvious, is that if you don't get a merit-based scholarship, but you get an offer of admission, but you know that you need the resources, you need support, you need the scholarship to study at Ashoka, please apply for the need-based scholarship. And I can't say this enough, we have very generous need-based scholarships. We want to give students from all walks of life, particularly if you don't have the resources to, to pay your tuition, to live on campus, or whatever your circumstances might be, and where you say, I have an offer, but I can't do this without the financial waivers that come with it. Please apply. Don't self-select. Don't tell yourself that, oh, I'm not going to get it, right? If you have genuine needs, you will get the need-based scholarships, even if you don't get the merit scholarships, right? But if you get a merit scholarship along with your offer and you need more, and that's how you can decide that Ashoka is where you can come, then please apply additionally to the need-based scholarships as well.
all right. So last question, what are the criteria for need-based scholarship?
So that's a very good question. The criteria for need-based scholarship is really your access to resources, your income, your ability to pay, right? So, and I'll just be very honest here, because I'm not part of the scholarships office. So I can be very honest, and I can tell you that we do have resources to give, but we give those resources to students who need it. It is very hard, once you submit all your paperwork, for the scholarship office to give need-based scholarships to students who may want it, but who already have resources, but don't want to use those resources for their undergraduate education. That's going to be hard. So if you're one of those that, I'd like to be funded, but and I didn't get a merit scholarship, but I can afford to study at Ashoka, and I can, that might be a little bit of a challenge. Having said that, you might be surprised. Maybe there might be a way where you can, where you see that I have a genuine need. So there are, even like a 50% on tuition or 25% on tuition can really ease that burden. And maybe there is a case for that, and it's a genuine need. If you put that forward, the scholarship team will definitely consider it. The scholarship form, the need-based scholarship form, is quite comprehensive. They ask you for a lot of things, and they also give you the space to explain your circumstances. So I'd say make the most of it. I'm not involved in that process, but I'd say make the most of it. If you have an offer of admission, you can definitely apply, right? And so
All right.
I think I would encourage you.
Yeah, that's quite, and thank you for thoroughly responding to so many questions, Marsha. I see, and I don't know if you've noticed, but we have more than 500 questions. So what I tried to do was bracket as many as we could cover to make sure that everybody gets something meaningful out of this. So yeah, I would like to say thank you so much for joining us for the Ashoka Admissions webinar. I hope this was helpful in understanding more about Ashoka's holistic admissions process. And before we wrap up the session, we would really like it if you could take a minute to share your valuable feedback with us. So the link to the feedback form is available in the chat box. So we'll just share it in a minute. Please note that the recording of the session will be available on Ashoka's YouTube channel. So even if you need to go back and visit something while you're filling the application, or you just want to share it with your friends, make sure that you're putting as much time into making sure you would submit a really effortful application. That is a good way to approach it. Please note that the last date to submit your application for round one is the 26th November 2025. So you can most definitely have a chance to secure your admission even without your class 12 board marks or CUET scores. So apply soon and apply now. And if you have any further questions regarding various other aspects of the university, feel free to write to us at ugapply@ashoka.edu.in. Once again, I thank Mercia very much for taking the time to participate in this discussion. And that brings us to the end of this discussion. So I wish you all good luck with your application, and I hope to see as many of them. So thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great evening.